to the ashes of the Imperium.
Hello and welcome to Ashes of the Imperium. Today we are talking all about the brand new Adeptus Custodes Codex. If you are more green than you are gold, then we'll also be releasing our Codex Orcs review. I'm joined as ever by the wonderful Max, and Max is a Custodes player, aren't you, Max?
I am, yeah. How are you tonight, Dan?
Oh, I'm living the dream. Very excited to get hold of the Orc Codex, I won't lie. But I
Good
thought
stuff.
we'll give you a little treat and do the gold boys first.
Yeah, I've got some skin in the game on this one, haven't I?
You've got some thoughts on this bad boy.
I'm not okay. Remember when we did our Tau review?
Yeah,
And that was exciting. And
that was exciting.
I think I've been spamming your WhatsApp since then. I've started repainting my army. I've got a 2K list written up. I'm saving up some pocket money to flesh it out with some more crisis suits. I'm very, very excited about that.
I think you even said on the episode and on our WhatsApp chat, you said something like, there's nothing like a new book to get you jazzed about an old army.
I think I might have said those exact words. Yeah. This codex doesn't do that for me.
Interesting. And we'll explore why later, maybe. Or let's do it now. Let's do the bluff. Bottom line up front. Why? What is it about this book that doesn't get you excited?
Okay. I've written some positives and negatives. There's twice as many negatives as positives. But to sum it up, I think the way I read it, playing narratively or playing competitively, there's only really 2 viable detachments out of 4. So we're only getting 4 detachments. And I don't know, you might have a different opinion to me, but I think only 2 of those are really good from a competitive or a casual standpoint. And there's been some fundamental changes to army rules and the way that Custodes are playing in 10th that I don't know. I think that they are a bit harsh, perhaps, considering where Custodes stood in the kind of pecking order at the moment. And then I've also got some concerns with points, but we don't know the full story of points yet, do we?
No. It's interesting because obviously we try and get these Codex reviews out on pre-order day, or at least during the pre-order window where possible. And that what that means is we don't necessarily always have the kind of post-release or post-pre-order kind of points updates. So what's happened in the past is Games Workshop will put a book out for pre-orders. Then at some point that week, I think then the Munitorum manual or something will get released for that book. So what that means is sometimes we've had books where I think that's why we delayed our Mechanicus one, which is actually is still in my to edit pile somewhere. So if you're an AdMech fan, then watch this space. You might get a
no one plays AdMech, Dan, don't worry.
Don't be mean. No, AdMechs are cool. So obviously sometimes you get a book and then you get a points update. And the points in the book were correct when they went to print, and they've made subsequent changes since. So yeah, it's an interesting place to be because the points in the back of this book are quite high, aren't they?
I've done some number crunching.
Have you?
Is this where we want to start?
Let's do it. Okay. We normally we do kind of do like narrative first, and then into rules.
Yeah.
I
think because
from tradition, because Max has some strong thoughts, and I don't want to give him an aneurysm.
They're my golden boys. They're my favorite army.
Golden boys, and indeed golden girls.
Yeah, well, yeah, those 2. I've got 10 of those.
not just Sister Silence, Max.
Go on.
Lady Custodes.
Huh?
In the in one of the 2-page narrative things that we are
I missed this.
So fond of, there is did you read the one with the Custodes like doing the blood games?
I'm not gonna lie, I saw the points and rules and I got
upset. You got upset. Max, you've gone into like internet rage mode and you've not really looked at the detail. Anyway,
I've looked at a lot of the detail for the rules, but please tell me some cool narrative stuff to cheer me up.
On page 14 and 15, there is a little 2-page thing of a custodian doing a blood game, which is effectively where they have to like infiltrate the Imperial Palace and pretend to assassinate the Emperor, but they kind of like do it for realsies. And no one has ever kind of won, I don't think.
Rage and Valorous.
Yeah. Oh, was he the only one that's won?
He's won a few blood games, I believe.
Has he won? So what does that mean? He's got to within a certain distance of the Imperial throne or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's something like that. But yeah.
Well, correct us in the comments, team. Tell us who's won Blood Games before. Trajan Valoris, he's very cool, isn't he? Anyway, so it starts off, it says, Custodian Calades Taravalia Kesh stood upon the bridge of a Cobra-class destroyer. And you think, okay, that could be a male or female name. It kind of sounds female. And then immediately, she lingered in the shadows at the back of the bridge. I think that's new.
Well, I think that's a really cool detail. And
Yeah.
thank you for highlighting that to
There
me,
we
because
go.
I was so blinded by the rules that I forgot the cool fluff, which is something that we love, isn't it, in these books? I think they're doing a really good job of that in 10th.
You could feasibly play your custodian guard, and you could just have some of them with bare heads, and those bare heads you could use like the Stormcast heads.
Because there are some awesome female heads as well, aren't there, in Stormcast kits?
Yeah,
Like,
some really cool ones. And then
complete
Forge World,
badasses,
in fact, did a like even a dedicated like female headset and a male headset, like spare heads, different ones, variants. So yeah, so Golden Boys and indeed Golden Girls, Max.
Golden Boys and Girls these
yes.
days. Yes, fantastic. What development. Anyway, they have been big changes, apparently big changes in the points costs, right? So Custodes launched at the start of 10th. They had some issues, I would say, with the way that the army played, a little bit too powerful. I'm looking at win rates from very early in 10th edition. I mean, Eldari are ridiculous up there at 67%, but Custodes were fourth in the list, right, with a win rate of 56%. And the main issues were you could take big blobs of 10, so you could really kind of consolidate like massive blobs of 3-4 wound guys, toughness 6, 2-up saves, 4-up invuns. Very hard to shift. But what that also meant is that you could be really, really efficient with your stratagems. So you would stick a captain in that 10-man blob. They could trigger the stratagems for free. And back at the start, it wasn't only limited to battle tactic. You could do like the fights first stratagem for free and arcane genetic alchemy for free. So not a fun army to play against, basically, like unshiftable super def blobs sitting on objectives. It didn't work very well. So they made those changes to the core rules. They limited Custodes to 5-man units. They obviously made the game-wide changes to battle tactic stratagems and how captains and shield captains and lords who trigger free strat use interact with that. And you know, got rid of the kind of worst defending tactics for Custodes that appeared at the start of the edition. And then they dropped all the way down to the bottom. 45% win rates, very, very difficult to manage. Part of the problem as well was Custodes had an army rule where they got 4-up saves against mortal wounds. And when devastating wounds first emerged in the edition, they were mortal wounds. They changed that to they're not mortal wounds anymore. They just bypass armor saves because there was like spillover, like a Wraith Knight with or, you know, the Eldar Titan with like a 3 damage weapon. When that did devastating wounds and it would spill over, you could, you know, wipe entire infantry squads with like a few hits because the wounds are spilling over. Because that's what mortal wounds do. So they changed that. So Custodes lost any kind of defense against devastating wounds, which for a very elite infantry-focused army was a big problem because, you know, my whole shtick is that I've got like 20 dudes. They've got a lot of wounds and they're really hard to get past their saves. If you can completely bypass that, then that's a problem. So they were struggling, right? So
and this was into 10th.
Yeah. This was post the first kind of balance update. Basically, made all these changes and made Custodes difficult to play. To be honest, so in response to that, with version 1.6 of the Munitorum Field Manual, there was a lot of points changes to Custodes. The Shield Captain on Bike went down 40 points. Custodian Guard went down 5 points per model. Wardens went down 5 points per model, as did the Terminators and the Bikes. We got our defense back against devastating wounds again, so the army rule was updated. 4-up feel no pain against mortal wounds and wounds that trigger as a result of devastating wounds, so that was like a specific change that was made. And they're just kind of sat quite happily in the middle of the pack at the moment and have been they're still a tough army to break down. They can still have some really competitive builds and fun builds, and Trajan leading a unit with his old rules. We'll get onto his new rules at some point, maybe. Was a real kind of death brick, and they were just a good kind of like middle of the pack army. But the points that are in the back of the Codex from that 1.6 field manual, we've got a 20-point increase to Trajan Valoras, a 20-point increase to shield captains, 40-point increase to shield captain on bike, 20-point increase to a Terminator captain, 11-point per model increase to guard, 15-point per model increase to wardens, like eye-watering stuff. 5-point increase to Terminators per model, this is. 25-point increase to bikes. That's nuts. No one's taking bikes because they're rubbish.
I love it. I love how passionate you're getting. Like, listeners who don't know Max, like, he's not raising his voice and getting around to you, but this is him on fire right now. Like, I could just hear the rage, simmering below.
I messaged you, didn't I? I was like,
Yeah.
Dan, these have got to be wrong. Like, this is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. Like, no one is taking bikes in 10th edition. They're paying for their sins of 8th and 9th, right? They're not a good unit. But to have them at 100 points per, to have them at 100 points per model, a 25-point increase per model from where they're currently sat is insanity. 20-point increase to Land Raider, and then a minor increase to Vigilators and Witch Seekers, who are some of the Sisters of Silence squads. So my kind of regular 2,000-point list that I've been running for a while now went up to, 2,350 points or something like that. Just crazy points changes that I can't see them being correct. Like, if that's the genuine points that Custodes are going to be, I'm just going to play my Chaos and my Space Marines and my Tau, because I don't know. I think it just breaks them as an army, especially when we layer on some of the other changes that have happened as well. It was concerning. I was very concerned, wasn't I, when I was messaging you?
Yeah. I am of the view that I think we're going to get some changes. So I think that when the data sheet comes out, the points will kind of go back to where they were previously. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that's. I don't know what that's based on. I just think that that they wouldn't have made those massive changes in the recent sort of months to then go back to where they were previously. Having then sort of, as you say, like, change some of the rules. Yeah,
agreed.
So what we did, obviously we create lists for our episodes. We actually used the old points, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because we looked at that, specifically for the Custodes models as well. I don't think the Sisters of Silence are as badly affected. So
Vigilators have gone up 5 points a model. Witch Seekers have gone up, because of the way that squads work now. You get some funny values. They've gone up 1.25 points per model, which
so but sort of relatively low kind of. So we have used the old points, but I think it's just going to be really interesting to see what happens in the pre-order window or on release. What happens with the points? So as ever, we are like very much focused on creating cool armies that are like narratively themed. We're not here to tell you what's the best army ever and what's going to kick the top tables people teeth in.
No, because neither of us are that good.
Neither of us are that good at the game, right? But it's interesting that you are. Would you refer to yourself as a casual player?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
but me and my friends, we occasionally like to get together and put a tough list together and like have a tough match. So we'll like, me and my friends will agree, like, should we like take some tough lists tonight and like have a proper throwdown, rather than like a chill game. We'll like ramp it up sometimes because we enjoy that. And, we have played in tournaments in the past. I've not played in tournaments for a while now because I'm a young daughter. It's just, but I do still like a hard game from now and then, I enjoy that element of the game. So what I've seen in this book kind of precludes my favourite army from one of the ways that I like to play the game.
Okay, that's interesting. What I would come back to you on that is, okay, fine. Custodes aren't going to be the army you use when you're playing super hard, kind of like more competitive stylists. But you have Tau for that, and you have your Space Marines, and
Chaos.
your Chaos as well. So you've got 3 other armies that are
Making me
competitive,
sound-
have competitive potential. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm presenting an alternative.
I'm
take.
throwing my toys out the pram.
Yeah, okay, no, fair one. Max, you're throwing your toys out the pram. I'm just catching the toys and gently passing you them back
Thank
and
you.
saying these rules, like, even if the points are per the book, even if the rules aren't going to change, obviously, but like, let's say they don't change the points and the rules stay the same as we could expect. Cool. All right, they've updated the book for 10th. It's slightly different to what it was before. Like, your Custodians then become your army for chilled out games.
Yeah.
Or maybe because you're playing in a casual environment, it's like, cool, the Custodes are going to take 2,000 points and you're going to fight against, I don't know, 1,750 worth of something, something like that. You say, like, if they're that underpowered, if, in your experience of playing the games, because at this point you've not played any games of 10th with Custodes with these rules.
No.
So
They might be great.
I don't necessarily think they're going to be like super great, but I don't think, like, not that you're taking like a sky is falling thing, but you have taken, I would say, you have reacted quite strongly to this codex.
Yeah, I have.
And I think there's space for casual games with silly lists and playing purely for funsies, and there's also scope for like hardened, more competitive lists. It's frustrating for more competitive players. If you are like a Custodes competitive player, then I'm sure you'll probably be annoyed. But people who are like that competitive players tends to have multiple armies to choose from as well.
Oh, they'll pivot to one of their others, and
exactly. So I think for me as a narrative player, I was disappointed in, for example, the Null Maidel Vigil, the detachment that's all about Scissor Silence, because some of the rules are obviously, let's say Silence, that their shtick is that they're all psychic blanks. So some of the rules only affect psychers, or only come into play if a model is psychers. And we'll kind of get onto it in a little bit, but it's kind of like, right, okay, that's all well and good, but that means that if I'm playing against like Jakara or something, like I've got some rules that just doing nothing. Yeah. So again, like that's frustrating. But I then read a little kind of like 3-page narrative thing with some Sister Silence come and kick some bum. So I was just like, yes, that's cool.
Yeah.
So in summary, Max, you are hoping that the rules are gonna, the points are gonna get a drop, and you're a bit frustrated that the rules aren't necessarily as strong.
Yes.
What is it? Let's focus on the positive, though. What is it you like about Custodes?
All right, there is one
as background. Let's skip rules for now.
Background.
What is it that attracts you to Custodes as an army, as a force?
They've been with the Emperor since the kind of Unification Wars era.
Yeah. Do you know when they weren't with the Emperor? On the Vengeful Spirit.
Oh, but that's so cool, isn't it? Because even these paragons of perfection fucked up. Excuse my friend.
Oh, Max is gonna have to edit that out. Although, actually, in the Vengeful Spirit art, are there not Custodes like in the background?
Yeah, I mean, there might be.
So
there might be, but
did they like join
they,
him afterwards? Anyway, yeah. Sorry, I've interrupted. Go ahead.
It was their greatest shame.
It is,
and they didn't leave the house for 10,000 years because of that. And but they've been with the Emperor from the start. They are to a Space Marine what a Space Marine is to you and me. There's the Watchers of the Throne series of books with Alea and Valerian. The second one in that series, there's a moment where the Minotaurs chapter. Love them. Yeah, they're doing some skullduggery for
as
the High Lords of Champ. Yeah,
oft do.
And there's a moment where a squad of Custodes fights a few squads of Minotaurs, and it's brutal. Like, the Minotaurs take a few of them down, of course they do, but the Custodes just like completely finish them off. And it's just like, these guys are engineered to be Space Marine killers, They're faster, they're stronger, they're smarter. they're better looking. They, they know more history. They can paint prettier pictures. They're like
funnier
true...
at dinner parties.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're great. It's just this idea. They're these angelic Renaissance painting descending on wings of fire. They're just like ultimate.
Stop. You're talking about the Blood Angels now.
They've got a similar vibe, right? They've got like that sanguineous thing, like this beauty and perfection, and 40k has in recent years, it's going down, which I don't mind, right? Like I've got a really, let me finish my thought before I say my opinion on it. It's going down a bit of a tactical route, isn't it? With like the Phobos armor guys and the pouches on the chest and the repulsors with the...
And that's tactical spelled COOL, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
and
Call of Duty operator kind of.
Yeah.
It's quite fashionable, isn't it?
And, the Votan are like really utilitarian and they look very kind of, it's not got that kind of gothic feel. Although, it's new Death Knights, new Deathwing Knights and everything. It's still there in spades, right? But it has started to diverge from that slightly in some of the kits. Custodes for me are that gothic, grimdark element of 40k that I love so much. They are big gold space knights. And I don't know, I really clicked with them as an army, and
yeah,
they're so fun to paint because they're so quick and easy. And I'm not a golden demon painter, right? I'm an army painter, and I can get squads of Custodes finished super fast to a nice tabletop standard that I'm happy with. They're just my favorite army. I really connected with them. And in the books, Master of Mankind, unbelievable book. The Watchers of the Throne books, like I've mentioned. Yeah, they've got some really good stories, really interesting characters. I like the models. Some people I know aren't the biggest fans of them.
What, the Custodes models?
Yeah,
Really?
I've heard some stuff in.
I mean, the new Shield Captain's a bit dumpy looking, but
yeah,
I'll wait until I've seen the actual model in the flesh before I pass judgment.
Yeah, no, you do, don't you? You need to see it like in 3D.
For sure. Like every single time I've seen a model that I'm like, oh, that doesn't look quite right. I've then seen it in the flesh and thought, yeah, that looks cool.
Mm-hmm, yeah, but they're really fun to play on the table as well. I really like the style. You've got limited resources. You have to be really clever with them. You have to kind of commit at the right moment, and every single model lost really hurts. So yeah, that's kind of why I fell in love with them, I guess.
Have you read Burning of Prospero?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Thousand Suns.
Yeah,
yeah. They're cool, right?
Yeah, unbelievable. And the way that they work with the sisters as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So Sisters of Silence are... Custodes are cool. For me, Sisters of Silence are where it's at. So of the Talons of the Emperor, which is kind of like the colloquial name for Sisters and Custodes ganging together to wreak havoc across the galaxy. Sisters are cool.
You should listen to Watchers of the Throne. It's really great. It's about Valerian, who's a custodian, and Alea, who's a Sister of Silence. It's kind of post Cicatrix Maledictum, and the way that their friendship kind of grows, and the way they fight together, and grow to care. It's just brilliantly written. I love the exploration of Custodes and Sisters together. There's some really awesome moments in Master of Mankind when Custodes and Sisters are fighting with each other, and they're just like so in sync. Like the Sisters like doing a bicycle kick over the back of the Custodes just at the moment that he ducks down to do like a sweeping, and it's just this is.
It's very kind of Orlando Bloom skateboarding down Helm's Deep stairways on a shield type fighting.
Yeah,
kind of very choreographed and silly, but quite entertaining.
Yeah.
And actually that kind of brings me onto my rules frustration, which is that the Forge World units that exist in 30k in Horus Heresy, the Age of Darkness, which I'm like massively getting into at the moment. There's a huge amount of Custodes and Sisters units there. All of the Custodes ones have 40k rules in the Imperial Armor PDF. None of the Sisters ones do.
That's a shame.
And it's a real shame, because for me, it would be a way to take a legitimately cool All Sisters army. As it is, You just kind of like I don't think that's
very limited. You've got
You're
3
very
infantry
limited.
options, a
You've got-
HQ, and a
yeah,
rhino.
yeah. Technically 2 HQ because you've got that named character you just mentioned. Is it Alea?
Alea, yeah.
Alea, who's just like a slightly different version of the kind of they're not called Oblivion Knights. I think they're called Oblivion Knights in the in 30k. Or that's like one of the ranks. What are they called? A Knight Centura. That's
Knight Centura,
yeah. So you've got Alea and Knight Centura is the kind of much of muchness, and then you've got the 3 infantry. You know, basically one with bolt guns, one with flamers, and one with swords. I want to say prosecutors are the ones with bow guns, vigilators are the ones with swords, and witch seekers are the ones with flamers.
Bang on,
yeah, because burn the witch. You know? Yeah, but like, and then of course a rhino. But like in 30k, you've got like one's armed with like 2 pistols, which is cool, like Matrix style John Woo Legends. You've also got like one of the coolest models in the 30k universe, which is the I can't remember what it's called, but it's like this kind of like it looks like a mechanical Dune sandworm. You know, it's got that kind of big open like big maw, and it's like a kind of floating tank thing. Kind of like imagine a Dune sandworm crossed with the like kind of dumpy droid transports in the Clone Wars. You know the ones in like the Battle of Naboo that kind of like have these like the coat hanger racks come out of the droids. Yeah. It looks a bit like that. It's really cool. Do you know the one I mean?
I don't know the model. I don't know the Sisters 30k range very well, I'm afraid.
Oh man, I'm gonna link it to you now.
Link it to me now, please.
And we can discuss it live.
There is potentially a reason that some of these units are limited. Because of course in 40k the Sisters are like they lost their HQ, didn't they? And they were kind of shunned, and a shadow with them form
absolutely. No,
and...
it's thoroughly explored in the lore in the book, which you know you read extensively. It's called the Charon Pattern Acquisitor. And I'm going to send it to you now, Axe, and you're going to tell me what you think of it.
Please do. Oh yeah. Well, that's very cool, isn't it? That's got that has some like Dune vibes to it, doesn't it? The kind of shape of it.
Doesn't it just? It kind of you can imagine like a bunch of like Harkonnen Sardaukar or something like jumping out of it. Yeah. And the kind of the front of it opens up to sort of reveal this kind of like swirly maw, which is the thing that reminds me of the sandworm.
Yeah.
And then on the side, it's got these like kind of, do you see this kind of like Iron Maiden-esque gibbet, you know, things? That's where they put the psychers. And like capture the psychers and like
take them off to the black ship.
Oh yeah. Ooh, shut up. But yeah, like it would have just like, I don't know, it would have been really cool to have that.
It's a shame.
And then like in 30k they've even got like, they haven't released them, but they've got jet bikes.
Very nice.
But yeah, so in the book, in the lore, there is like a kind of, this is in the era Indomitus, much of the Silent Sisterhood's more esoteric weaponry, that with which it prosecuted its missions during the Great Crusade, has long since been lost to time. The Sisters of Silence once had a vast amount of technology that was never even heard of, let alone used outside of their ranks. Armored skimmers of surprisingly esoteric design, whose stealthy approach could not be detected by this luckless quarry. Anti-psychic armaments, whose manufacture is now lost to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Energy blades so valuable that wars have been fought to possess even one such ancient and potent relic. Devices supposedly crafted by the hand of the Emperor himself. Such riches are lost to the Sisters of Silence in this ignorant modern age. The equipment the Sisters still have is, as it always was, extremely resource intensive. The required materials are rare and obscure, and even harder to acquire in quantity since the emergence of the Great Rift. Nonetheless, such martial riches are never squandered. Every armament wielded by the Sisters of Silence is a potent tool of war, rendered all the more perilous in their hands. So, like, you know, a few paragraphs on why we don't have all the cool 30k stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, like, I like that they've explored it in the book. It's just a shame. Like, for me, I'm like, that is a shame. You know, I'm not going to have the ability to kind of do like a really cool varied Sisters army. And as it is, I don't think the rules really support that in a kind of like meaningful way. You can obviously just choose, you know, obviously you can have an army full of Gretchen, you can obviously have an army full of, you know, whatever you want, especially scouts. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be any good on the tabletop.
No. But okay, and this is one of the positives I've noted down. the Talons of the Emperor detachment, so the one that works, Custodes and Sisters in concert, I think is one of the more interesting detachments that I've seen in 10th so far, just in terms of the way it functions and the way it works, the way the stratagems work together, in a similar way to the AdMech book.
Which more on which later. Watch this space, your episode will come out.
Yeah, if you had like multiple battle line within 6 inches of each other, then you get additional buffs on top when you use for stratagems. When you keep the Custodians and the Sisters within 6 inches of each other, they can both be affected by the stratagem. Like it's cool, and the strats are really interesting. We can get onto more of that later, maybe, but I think that the Talons of the Emperor detachment is really. I'm looking at stuff I can do with that. I think I could have some fun playing with that one. That would be my go-to for the casual games. Would be running something from that.
Excellent. And in the kind of new sort of era, or the fourth tyrannic war, the Custodians and Sisters are kind of used in the kind of the Soul Blade.
That is
like
point
sort of
number
detachment.
3 of my
Is it?
positives. Yeah,
Oh.
Soul Blades.
What was point number 1?
Castellan axes fixed. We'll get on to that later.
Cool. All right. Well, let's work through your positives then, Max.
So yeah, Soul Blades, really cool concept. They were talked about in the Tyrannid review that we did way back. I think that's a really nice addition to the lore. These kind of hyper elite interdiction forces to kind of slow the Tyrannid advance. I really like that as a concept. I think you could play some really fun kind of like boarding action style games, like playing out Soul Blade-esque scenarios. So that's really good.
No way. And because it's like a really elite interdiction force, you could it wouldn't necessarily matter if your rules weren't necessarily as good and you were perhaps overpointed, because you would be a really elite, narratively smaller force. Isn't that right, Max?
Yeah,
so you could be playing
Yeah,
an an overcosted, underpowered force against a much larger, better force of Tyranids. It wouldn't matter because you'd be having fun. There we go, Max. You've undermined your argument perfectly.
Like a Zone Mortalis style Space Hulk game on. Against
this is
Tyranids.
what I mean. This is what I mean. Like, there's so much more to 40k than your 2,000 point, competitively focused matches. I'm not trying to dismiss anyone, anyone who just play like that all the time. But I just say there's space to enjoy the hobby and enjoy this book, because we don't normally kind of, I don't know, we like to see the positives and things. We like to highlight what's good about things, and we obviously all we will say like this is frustrating, this is annoying, but we're not the kind of channel that like jumps all over this as like, right, let's do a 45-minute rant about points and let's do a 45-minute rant about the stratagems. Like, I don't know, like Warhammer to me is a source of such enjoyment and fun. So like content creation is part of that fun. Why would I spend my spare time talking negatively about something I enjoy?
I think that's fair enough. Yeah, I'm with you.
What's point number? What? So right, Soul Blades, they're cool.
Yeah. And I can see some fun narrative style games exploring that concept. And the final thing that I like is the new loadout for the captain. It's very good that we can finally take a shield and a spear on the same guy, and we're not limited to sword and shield or spear and no shield. So that's a nice addition. It's a very powerful combination, but the fact is you can only have it on the captain, so that's all good.
Interesting. And you said also they fixed the axes? Yeah.
So axes were a really good weapon option in 8th and 9th edition. Slightly lower AP, a pip more damage, same weapon skill. So on your Terminators and your Wardens, you would have taken axes. And then when 10th edition dropped, they reduced the weapon skill. So rather than hitting on 2s, you were hitting on 3s. They had -1 AP, I think it was. And they were still a pip more damage, but the weapon skill really hurt them. But now they've changed the profile back, and an axe is now strength 9, -1 AP, 3 damage, but weapon skill 2. So it's good that we've got the 2-up weapon skill back on the axes. Makes them a much more appealing weapon option to take. And every single one of my Terminators and every single one of my Wardens is modelled with an axe. So I no longer have to run those and say, "Oh, they're spears." By the way, I can play them WYSIWYG, which always makes me happy.
That's cool. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
So axe was number one, was it?
Yeah, that was the first point I wrote down. And then we get onto my negatives, but that's a longer list.
Tell us. So what have we missed off the positives? We had axes.
Yeah, axes, Talons of the Emperor detachment, really exciting, very fluffy, very creative. Soul blades, new captain loadout, very cool.
Sweet. There we go.
Yeah.
And so obviously we've given like the kind of rough overview of like you weren't a huge fan of the book overall. Mm-hmm. What else has fed into that? Well,
points I think we've covered now.
For sure.
That was a big concern. The fact, so we mentioned this when we were looking at the Tau book as well. We predicted that there would only be 4 detachments in the book, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because that's all we got with Tau. Now, with the Tau detachments, I would say, with the exception of the Kroot one, which is a fun detachment, like you could, that's our Talons of the Emperor detachment equivalent in this book. There are 3 detachments that can be. There's like one very focused on defensive style play. There's one very aggressive one. Then there's one just like all out battle suit. So there's a lot of flexibility in how you play. With these 4 detachments in this book, I think 2 of them are so janky that you couldn't have a fun casual game with them. You couldn't have a fun competitive game with them. I don't see what they bring, really. And those 2 detachments are the Null Maiden Vigil one and the Auric Champions detachment, which is kind of very focused on characters. And they're just, they're very situational. The rules, I don't know. I just wasn't very impressed with them. What did you think of those 2?
So as a huge fan of Sisters of Silence, I was immediately drawn to the Null Maidens detachment. The thing that kind of frustrated me about it is that sort of, well, no, I'll start that again. Like, the thing that I really enjoyed about it was that the rules weren't just against psychers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like, right, how are they going to make this detachment usable in any way possible when it's all about psychic dampening with these blanks, these psychic nulls? And they did that in an interesting way, which is in the Battleshock step, your opponent's command phase, if an enemy unit that's either a psyker or below its starting strength is within 12 inches, it must take a battle shock. If the unit is below half strength, it minuses 1 from that.
Mm-hmm.
So theoretically, and there's a designer's note, this means that all enemy psychic units within range of this aura ability and all enemy units within a range of this aura ability that have lost 1 or more models must take a battle shock test, not just those that are below half strength. So it means that if you are playing something like Drukhari, then you are going to have like your buff against them. It's not just psychic units. It also gives you prosecutors as a battle line, which is kind of a cute bonus. But just like all the enhancements are, so that was the good thing. So I'm bouncing around here, but like that was the good thing. It was like, okay, I like how Creeping Dread doesn't just work against psychers. There's a way to make it work against normal dudes as well. But then enhancements, you've got add 1 to the attack strength and damage characteristic of this bearer's melee weapons. That's good. That happens for everything. Whilst the bearer is within engaged range of 1 or more enemy psychers, add 2 to the attack strength and damage. And you're like, okay, cool. So I get that I can +1 to the attack strength and damage, but I'm only getting this full rule if I'm within range of a psyker. Which again, like, how many times have you played games when the army doesn't have any psykers?
Yeah, it's so situational, isn't it?
It's great if you're playing against Tyranids or something like that, but
Thousand Suns.
Thousand Suns, exactly. You're loving life.
Yeah.
And then the Void Sheen Cloak. So each time attack is allocated to the bearer, subtract 1 from damage. If attack is made by a psyker or a battle shocked model, change damage characteristic attack to 1. So again, it's bringing in, it's not just psykers, it's also battle shock, but like the part of that rule is only triggered by psykers. Hunter's Eye is cool. It's just basically you select the unit within 12 in your command phase, and they have to take a battle shock test. And then Oblivion Knight, the bearer is, which is cool. Like, I mean, if I was going to have a rank in the 41st Millennium, I would like it to be Oblivion Knight. But that would mean I would have to be Sister Silence. So, whilst the bearer is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. Cool. +1 to the hit roll. We like that. If the attack targeted an enemy psychic unit, add 1 to the wound roll. You're like, okay, cool, great. So I'm only getting half my rules only like some of the time. Yep. That's the bit that frustrates me.
Do you know what's really sucks with Oblivion Knight as well? Is 1/3 of the sisters' units don't need to make a hit roll because they have flamers.
So yeah, don't put your Oblivion Knight in with your Witch Seekers.
No.
Unless you're targeting Psychers, in which case you'd be +1 to wound.
It's just disappointing, isn't it? It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it is a bit disappointing. And then obviously we could go into stratagems, but as you can imagine, they're all very, very psycho focused.
Mm-hmm.
But like to kind of counteract my own kind of negativity there, it's a really cool like narrative list. It's a really cool narrative detachment. Imagine
absolutely.
if you're like, yeah, I'm going to bring my 1,000 Suns. Max, I'm going to bring my 1,000 Suns. You could be like, right down, I'm going to bring my Null Maiden Vigil. And it's going to be a real uphill struggle. And like, I think if you're doing like a pickup game, you kind of flip the coin, don't you? Am I going to play against a bunch of psychos or not? And if you play against someone with 1,000 Suns, you're like, great, I'm laughing. But like for games that you're arranging, I think it's cool. It's cool that you can have like a really anti-psychic force.
And there's rules for it. That's right.
And if you don't want to take that anti-psychic force, you just take one of the detachments. You're something like Talons of the Emperor.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Let's look at Auric champions quickly. Again, we won't go into all the detail, but this is another one of those weird ones. So the detachment rule is assemblage of might. At the start of your command phase, you select one unit from your opponent's army until the start of your next command phase. Each time a Adeptus Custodes character model makes an attack that targets that unit, add 1 to the wound roll. So Custodes characters have not got good shooting. They have like 2-shot -1 2 damage guns on the whole, right? So this is only really gonna kick in melee. Fine, Custodes are a melee army, but it's only affecting characters. Only characters are getting this buff, not characters and the units they are leading, or not characters and the units they're leading, but you have to turn that on for it with a stratagem kind of thing. It's only affecting that character, which just seems so focused and restrictive that I get the idea, right? Like these are, it's like hero hammer, but you take a detachment because it gives you cool fun rules. Like you could write a kind of like Avengers style list where you're taking a load of characters here and maybe have some fun with this. But I just feel this one is similarly restrictive in the way that the Null Maiden Vigil one was. Not
necessarily restrictive, but specific. It's too specific, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think Paul from Forge the Narrative podcast always says, back in like 7th and 8th, he'd always say like stratagems that make you have to roll something to get the benefit. It's just like he doesn't like them because it's like you're going to spend a CP to get a bonus rather than spend a CP to roll a dice and maybe not get the bonus. And I think that's the kind of thing here. You're going to pick your detachment to add value to your army.
Yeah.
Now, as you say, you could build your army around this specific detachment, but like, wouldn't it just be cooler that like all your dudes were getting feel no pain, or like you were getting +1 to hit roll or something? Something that was present all the time, or on certain conditions if they're like within range. I'm referring there to the Talons of the Emperor one.
Yeah.
Yes, it's conditional. You have to be near a sister's unit, has to be near a Custodes unit, and vice versa. But you don't have to roll anything. It's not like for one very, very specific unit in the game. I can see why that's I could see why that kind of attracted your ire.
Yeah, and the other 2 detachments I think are good. We'll look at those when we talk about some lists in a bit. But yeah, the fact that there's only 4, okay, I that's fine. It's a small army. There's a fairly limited unit roster. Like, okay, I am looking forward to seeing what the 8 detachments in the because we found out there's going to be 8 in the Chaos book, so I'm looking forward to seeing what some of those are. But that only 2 of the ones of the 4 in this book have some options in my eyes. Also, when we get to the army rule itself. So the Marshal Qatar, in the index for 10th edition, it works very similar. Well, it works identically to how it does in the Codex now. So each time a unit from your army is selected to fight, you select a fighting stance from the ones below. Until that unit's finished making its attacks, this stance is active and it gains the relevant ability. So we have the Qatarai stance, which gives your melee weapon sustained hits 1. which is a lot of fun when you throw in 30, 40 attacks down, and you get all those lovely sixes, and you just kind of count them up. That's a really cool thing. And then we have the Rendax stance, which is melee weapons equipped by models in this unit have the lethal hits ability. In the index, as well as those two stances, we also had the Captaris stance, which was each time a melee attack targets this unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So you could, in your enemy's turn, if they're fighting first, you could go defensive and trigger Captaris. Or if you've got the charge and you're fighting first and you're going into a big horde, you could pick Decatarai and go for the sustained hits, or Rendax if you're swinging into vehicles and you need to get the wounds through. So there was like a really good representation of the flexibility of Custodes, but we've lost one of those stances now. We only have sustained hits and lethal hits. We can't make them -1 to hit anymore, which was a bit of a shame, I thought, because that...
I wonder why that is. Do you think it was particularly strong?
It was strong on a unit of 10, for sure. And
a unit of 10?
Anything. You know, and it was strong on big units of Custodes.
For sure, but you can't take 10 Custodes anymore.
No, you can't do that anymore, no.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it was offensively powerful.
No.
Like, they're hard to get through, sure.
It's interesting because, you know, you've lost your ability to take, you know, you can only take 6 custodians, 6 Alaris custodians.
Mm-hmm.
You can only take up to 5 custodians,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all custodians, goodness. You can only take 5 guard, you can only take 5 wardens, you can only take praetors as a 2 or a 3, because you used to be able to take them as a 6, couldn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So they've definitely done some kind of some refining, let's say. In the same way that they did that for the jumpsuits, the battle suits for Tau. You know, you used to be able to take 6s, and now you can only take them in 3s, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And with the stances as well, the shield captains used to have an ability, Master of the Stances, where in any one fight phase you could pick 2 of the stances and they would both be active. So you'd be like, okay, I'm going to give my guys -1 to hit and lethal in this phase. That's now been changed to once per battle. When this unit is selected to fight, it can use this ability. If it does, until that fight is resolved, both stances are active instead of only one. So you can only do that once per battle now, which is okay. That's fine. But it's just an interesting consequence of the way that the reduction of stances from 3 to 2 has also kind of bled down into the rules for the captains as well.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but these stances count towards any unit with the Adeptus Custodes keyword.
Yes, and sisters have that.
They do. They have the fractured Adeptus Custodes. That is really interesting.
But do they have the? Let's check this. Do they have the Martial Qatar ability where it says faction? No. So if you look at a Custodes datasheet, Dan, you'll see under abilities it says faction Martial Qatar. That is missing from the sisters data sheets. So
gotcha. So the rule is Martial Qatar, and then that describes the rule benefit. It's not. Damn.
Yeah. So
I got excited.
even more disappointment for sisters.
Poor sisters. Yeah. No, I thought it was like the rule is if your army is Custodes, everyone gets Martial Qatar. My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
Poor sisters.
Yeah. So.
But there's me. I'm like, I want to take this very, very small niche thing from one aspect of the law and turn it into a full army, which is my thing. Yeah, that's what I like doing. It's just maybe sisters aren't that, on that unit.
Yeah.
Or to kind of go back to it, you can do it. It's just not going to be very good.
Yeah, exactly. So still a decent army rule, still a very good army rule. Because they are absolute freight trains in melee. Like, they are blenders, mince everything. And the fact that you can layer on sustained or lethal on top of that is very, very good. It's just a shame we've lost a little bit of that flexibility and defensive play in going for the -1 to hit stance as well, which is a bit sad.
That makes sense. Should we talk about the lists that we've made?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Do you want to go first?
Of course, yeah. I have gone for the Shield Host detachment, which is the closest detachment to the Index one. So the detachment rule that you get for this, on top of fighting stances, is once per battle, at the start of your round, you can use martial mastery. If you do, until the start of the next battle round, each time a Custodes model from your army with the Qatar ability makes a melee attack, a successful hit roll of 5+ scores a critical hit. So you're getting sustained or lethal on 5+. And in addition to that, improve the armor penetration characteristic of melee weapons equipped by Custodes models by 1. So you get a pip more AP and your critical hits are going off on 5s. And that's for a battle round. So if you're going second, you could trigger that in your opponent's turn and get the benefits of that in their fight phase, which is nice. So it's a bit like the War ability that orcs have in that way. So a cool detachment rule. It's obviously only limited to one battle round, but if you can time that right, that's going to be a really, really bad battle round for your opponents. If you've got lots of your key assets in combat at that time, you're going to do a lot of damage, right? So it's kind of patiently waiting for that opportunity to land the killing blow, which feels very on brand for them. I like it. So in terms of the list, I've gone for my characters. I've gone for a Blade Champion, and I've given him the Auric Mantle, which adds 2 to his wounds characteristic, so makes one of my Blade Champions a little bit more survivable. And he will be leading up a unit of Wardens. I'll get onto those in a second. I've taken a Shield Captain with a Castellan Axe, and I've given him the enhancement from the Hall of Armories. And what that does is gives his melee weapon +1 strength and damage. So he's now got a strength 10 4 damage axe, which is hilarious.
That's cool. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. And I think the axe is the one that you use that relic on. You use that enhancement on. And then I've got a Shield Captain with Castellan's Mark. And I've given him the Pyrite Spear and Shield, so he's the new guy. And
the stumpy one.
Yeah, the stumpy one. The Castellan's Mark gives you a redeploy for 2 units once everyone's dropped, which is good. So a good kind of defensive option. And then Battle Line. I've got 3 units of Custodian Guard, 5-man units, and I've kitted those out in my usual way, which is 3 with Guardian Spears and 2 with Sword and Board. So the Sword and Shield guys just give you a couple more ablative wounds to keep your Spear guys alive, because they have better melee and more attacks. So, same number of attacks, but better melee. So you want to get those guys in. So I like to have the shields for extra wounds. And then in my other data sheets, I've gone for a unit of 5 Custodian Alaris, so Terminators, and then 2 units of 5 Wardens, and I've given all of those Castellan Axes. So the whole point of this list is each one of the Warden squads has a character leading it, because when they're being led by a character, if they're getting shot at or attacked by a weapon that is higher strength than their toughness, then you subtract 1 from the wound roll, so it makes them more survivable. And also, once per battle, Wardens can get a 4-up Feel No Pain in the phase. So if you've got your Wardens in an exposed position and they're going to get a hell of a lot of shooting, you can give them a 4-up Feel No Pain, and they also get the benefit of the -1 to wound. So you can really kind of keep them alive in a very kind of clutch situation. The Terminators can still pick up and redeploy, which is good. Everything's got Deep Strike as well, of course, which is really powerful. And the Custodian Guard with the shields just gives them a bit of extra survivability. So with the Castellan's Mark, you can be quite aggressive in your deployment, bait out some key objectives from your opponent perhaps, or make them deploy in a slightly more aggressive way or defensive way than they wanted to, then do the old switcheroo and whip up a couple of units and either put them back in Deep Strike or So it's kind of keeping your assets around for as long as possible, right? While exposing some key enemy units. The Wardens stay alive. The Terminators are super tough and stay alive. So the list has kind of been built around being patient, keeping your assets on the board until that key moment where you can trigger your martial mastery and unleash this horrific fight phase from hell for your opponent where critical hits are going off on 5s and AP, an extra pip of AP on all your weapons is how the list has kind of been built. And so really, really strong enhancements. I think a really good detachment rule, provided that you can trigger it at the right time. And then some really good stratagems as well. Unwavering Sentinels is always been an option of mine. So that gives you, I might have to re-say that bit a sec, hang on.
That's right.
Okay, so some really good stratagems in here as well. So Vigilance Eternal is a really strong one that gives you sticky objectives for 1 CP. That's been a stratagem that I've used a lot. It's good to see that that's continuing. Avenge the Fallen for a CP. If your unit is below its starting strength, then you get an extra attack from each of your models. So that kind of does a little bit to offset the pain of losing a model from a squad. You know, you lose those 5 attacks, but each of your remaining 4 dudes get an additional attack. So, and if it's below half strength, then you get 2 additional attacks, which is nice for 1 CP. Then there's been a couple of changes. So Arcane Genetic Alchemy used to be subtract 1 from damage, which was a really nice stratagem. But now, Arcane Genetic Alchemy gives you a 4-up feel no pain against mortal wounds, which was the old detachment rule.
Like Aegis of the Emperor or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So no more -1 damage, which is a bit of a shame. And Arcane Genetic Alchemy gives you the 4-up feel no pain, specifically against mortal wounds. I think this might be one of those ones that they correct quite soon and say, and also devastating. I hope they would anyway. Because
a lot of wishful thinking here, isn't there?
Yeah, because otherwise we've lost our defense against devastating wounds again, which would be a bit of a shame. Because that's one of the things that they kind of corrected. So I kind of hope that they'll correct that again. We've also got a charge and fallback strat, which is quite nice. And lethal hits or sustained hits on shooting weapons as well, which with your guard, they can shoot twice, once per battle. So, you know, could buff up the shooting a little bit.
Nice,
so some good strats. Some of the strats have lost a bit of their oomph. We've lost access to any kind of fights first now. So Trajan Valorous used to be able to give a unit fights first. That's gone. There used to be a stratagem for fights first. I can't see that in any of the detachments. And that was obviously a really strong play for Custodes. The ability to give them fights first. So it looks like that's gone from the book as well, which is another bit of a shame. But, yeah, it's what it is. But if the points stay broadly similar, I'm quite excited to give this list and this detachment a go, because I really like the idea of the tactical challenge of keeping your precious assets alive until you can deliver that hammer blow. I think that'd be a really interesting problem to play out on the table.
Cool. That sounds really interesting. So there is one aspect, one way to get fights first in the book. It's not for Custodians, it's for Sisters, and Alea, the special character, has a raw tactical perception. Whilst his model is leading unit, models in that unit have the fights first ability.
Well spotted. That's good. Okay.
Which is cool,
so
right?
You can give it to your sword sisters, and that'd be quite nice. My friend who has played my Custodes a lot will be very, very happy that Fights First is gone, because that's been the bane of his life. He like dreads charging my units because he knows I'm going to go Fights First, and always makes him very grumpy. So he'll be happy at least.
I think it's an interesting mix of the changes of the rules, isn't it? I don't think it's all bad. I think there are some interesting plays.
Yeah,
and I think the list you just described there is a great example of like trying to see how you can make it work.
Yeah, I think so. In my mind, bikes are still not good enough. They have been very, very powerful in the past. I get it. They're in the same place as the Riptide from the Tau Codex. They're paying for their sins.
Paying for their sins of previous editions, as you said.
Yeah, exactly. and Trajan's taken a little bit of a hit as well, but yeah, he's still awesome. My favourite rule for Trajan, I would put him in lists quite happily. He can give once per battle, he can give himself 12 attacks, which is so good.
That's insane.
yeah, he's really, really good. His main rule, so the reason that a lot of people have been taking him previously, he basically gives the unit that he's leading, they ignore any kind of modifier. So that could be a modifier to the hit roll, or a modifier to movement, or in the case of things like transcendent Catans that reduce damage, Trajan's unit ignored that, so no damage reduction from their attacks. That's changed now. So
now it's just BS and it's just
BS
skill, weapon skill, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so any movement shenanigans are gone, and any damage reduction avoidance is gone as well. But he's still a complete badass. Like, take him because he's fun and awesome.
I just love the idea of 12 attacks.
Yeah,
weapon skill 2. Strength 10.
Or if you don't fancy that, a 2-up invulnerable save he can have as well.
Oh, I love it. I'm glad that's either or.
Yeah. So there used to be a third option as well, which was Trajan can give his unit fights first. So you'd have like 3 very, very tempting options to pick from when you wanted to trigger that ability. But those 2 are still super duper powerful. So he's still a good unit. Actually, interestingly, in the Auric Champions detachment, there's a strat that lets you trigger a character's once per battle ability again. So you could give Trajan 12 attacks twice. Which should be fun.
Okay. And then does his him being a character, does that trigger the kind of Auric Champions like ability? Assemblage of Might. So start your command phase, select 1 unit from your opponent's army until the start of your next command phase. Each time a character model from your army makes an attack that targets the enemy unit, add 1 to wound roll.
Yeah,
so
he would get that benefit, with his Watcher's Axe,
twice.
Yeah.
See, it's not all bad, Max.
No, I know.
It's not all bad.
But that's only against 1 unit, of course.
That's true. That unit is dead.
Yes. Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's my list. Sorry, I've gone quite crunchy and competitive on this one, but that's just kind of how that's how I think about my Custodes, I think. So that's probably one of the reasons that this book's disappointed me. But look,
because they have up until recently been your kind of more competitive focused army.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. They're the one that I kind of take when I want to play a hard game. But look, I'm happy with that list. I think it's got some potential. It might not be super duper strong, but I think the tactical challenge that it presents is one that I'm looking forward to playing out. So we'll see. Anyway, what did you go for, Dan?
Cool,
Tell me about yours.
Well, I went for Talons of the Emperor because I just didn't think Null Maiden Vigil kind of cut the mustard for me. I started writing a purely Sisters army, and it just didn't do it for me. It wasn't all right. It didn't. There's too few units to choose from. So the detachment rule of Talons of the Emperor, which is a detachment all about the Sisters of Silence working with the Adeptus Custodes themselves together, and Anathema Psychana, i.e. Sisters units, from your army gain the following ability. Null Aegis, which is an aura. Whilst an Adeptus Custodes unit is within 6 of your Sisters unit, models in the Adeptus Custodes unit get 5-up, feel no pain against psychic attacks and mortal wounds, which is what Sisters of Silence get anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then your Adeptus Custodes units get deadly utility, aura, whilst an Anathema Psychana unit is within 6 inches of that unit. Each time a model in the Sisters unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. So, in summary,
it takes a bit to get your head around.
It does, because it's this unit and that unit, and you have to kind of work it out. But basically, your Sisters give your Custodes 5-up feel no pain against psychic attacks and mortal wounds.
Yes,
and your Custodes give your Sisters +1 to hit.
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
There's 4 enhancements, as there often are. They can only go to, it says Adeptus Custodes models, but Sisters have the Adeptus Custodes faction keyword, so you can give this to anyone really. So you got Radiant Mantle. Each time an attack targets the bearer's unit, the attacking model is within 12 inch. Subtract 1 from the hit roll, which is cool. And that that doesn't necessarily replace the kind of dance thing that we lost before, but it's a cool little thing. And it's also not just the bearer, it's the bearer's unit as well, which is good. A gift of Terran Artifice. Each time the bearer makes a ranged attack, add 1 to the wound roll. Yeah, fine. I don't think that's that great. Champion of the Imperium, you up the range of those 2 auras that we just discussed. You up the range to 9 inches instead of 6 inches. Yeah, I think sort of mildly useful. Useful. And Aegis Projector. Once per turn, the first time a saving throw is failed for the bearer's unit, change the damage characteristic of that attack to 0.
So yeah, none of those enhancements they don't excite me as much as the ones in the Shield Host. I think Radiant Mantle is really good. I like that. +1 to wound's always strong, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Radiant Mantle and then the +1 to wound. Radiant Mantle, I would take.
Yes.
I think if I had spare points, I'd take the +1 to wound, but I don't think it's going to change things hugely.
No, being able to reduce damage to 0 is quite handy because it is quite tough to get a wound through on Custodes. So, when your opponent finally gets one through and they're like, oh yes, I got my exocrine 3 damage through. That's one of your guys dead. No, it isn't. 0 damage. That's a bit cheeky, but
I suppose the +1 to wound thing, I'm actually reframing my thoughts on that because the Executioner Great Blades are only strength 5. So I think that's of your your character, your kind of what are they called?
Your Knight Centura. Yeah,
Knight Centura. I keep wanting to call them Oblivion Knights. So cool. They're only strength 5. So I think that's worth taking as well. But you can't give special characters enhancements, can you?
No, so a layer couldn't take that.
No. So there we go. So I think I'd probably take the -1 to hit on my Knight Centura.
Yeah, nice. That'd be good because they are a bit squishy. So anything you can do to keep them
exactly.
Anyway, yeah, run us through.
Yeah, so just talking about the stratagem. So you can there's a 1 CP one called Hunt as 1. It allows you to shoot and or declare a charge in the turn you fall back. You can only select 2 units if one and only one of them is an anathema Psychana unit, and both are in 6 inches each of the other. So again, it has to be one Sisters unit, 1 Custodes unit. And the Talons Interloctus has the same restriction, but your units can you select up to 2 infantry units, 1 enemy unit that's eligible target for all of those units. Until the end of the phase, your units can only target that enemy unit, but each time a model in one of your units makes a ranged attack, improve the strength and armor pen.
Yeah, that's good.
1. That's like cool.
That would be tasty on a unit of flamers.
10 flamers. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Empiric Severance. So shooting or fight phase after the enemy selected its targets. So you can get Feel No Pain.
There's our Feel No Pain again. Yeah.
Psychic attacks and mortal wounds.
Yeah. Yeah. So a 4-up rather than a 5-up, which is good.
Yes. Sorry. A 4-up because that 5-up is native on the War Scroll.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's right.
Yeah. Emperor's Executioners again. All these stratagems, almost all of them are select 2 units, but
they all have that same restriction as well.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
So this one is until the end of the phase, each time model in one of your units targets an enemy unit that's below starting strength, add 1 to the wound roll. So again, cool, adding 1 to the wound, and it's almost giving, like for a stratagem, it's giving that warlord trait or that enhancement, isn't it? Taloned Pincer, your units can make a normal move up to 6 inches. You have to start more than 9 inches away from an enemy, and obviously you can't do it when you're in engagement range. And Shield of Honor, your 1 Sisters unit from your army that's selected as target of 1 or more of the attacking units attacks, and 1 other friendly Custodes unit within 6 inches of that unit. Until the end of the phase, any attack that targets your Sisters unit must instead be targeted against your Custodes. So it's like a kind of like bodyguard thing.
So a couple of things on these strats. 1, I absolutely love Shield of Honor.
Yeah.
I love the scene in my head of like, I don't know, just like this, I don't know, a mega knob like about to swing his power claw down on the sister, and then this shield just comes down and it's like, pick on someone your own size. It's awesome. But I think another really cool thing about these strats, which some people might miss, is that 4 out of 6 of those strats are battle tactics, which means that your shield captains can trigger those for free. Because the restriction for using strats for free is battle tactic these days, isn't it? So you've got a lot of utility coming out of your shield captains, because Emperor's Executioners, Taloned Pincer, Talons Interlocked, and Empiric Severance are all battle tactic stratagems, which I think is really cool, because often you are only really getting one battle tactic stratagem per detachment. Auric Champions doesn't have any, just as a comparative. So the fact that has 4 battle tactic strats is really strong and really cool.
That is good. That is good. Although I haven't taken any shield captains, so
No, well, that's okay.
I haven't necessarily.
You could, it is an option for that detachment.
It is an option. No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So yeah.
So my army is not particularly. I don't think it's very strong at all, but it does take some really cool things. So I took two HQs, 2 characters. I took a Leia and a Knight Centura, and then I put them both in a Rhino with a squad of 10 sisters. So the sisters Rhinos have transport capacity 12. So I put 10 Vigilators, which are the ones with the great blades. I put a Leia with them because she can give them fight first. And I put my Knight Centura in with the 10 Flamers. Now, I did say I'd give her the -1 to the Radiant Mantle, but actually the +1 to wound. Oh, no, the +1 to wound's only melee, so that's not that great on Flamers. Never mind.
Yeah.
Frustrating. Okay, yeah. So I'm not 100% certain whether Flamers are a good idea. So I could be tempted just to swap them to another unit of 10 swords. The frustrating thing is that the Rhinos obviously aren't an assault vehicle, so you're not jumping out of them. But sisters do have scout. And if they're in a dedicated transport, so you can scout them first turn, and so you're a little bit further, and then I don't know. There's kind of like maybe disembark out of them. Yeah. I don't know. It's difficult.
Is a Leia leading the sword sisters? Sorry,
that's right. Yeah,
yeah. That's very fluffy as well, because she is a vigilator in the book, so
that's cool.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And then I took 2 little squads of 5 prosecutors, which are the botgun sisters. Just for sort of objective nabbing.
Yeah.
And then for the rest of the data sheets, I took models from the. Oh, I also took an allied unit, a Cavalus Assassin.
Yeah, I like
that.
Because
I thought that was fitting.
Yes.
You know, that kind of like Agents of the Imperium type thing. And then the rest of it I filled up with cool toys.
You've gone buck wild, haven't you?
I've gone absolutely buck wild. So noting that I've got 2 Rhinos that'll be like scouting at the battlefield and zooming around, I thought I'd need some custodians to go with them to kind of benefit from the fancy rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I took 2 squads of 3 Venatari custodians, who are like the jump pack ones.
I love those guys so much.
So
I've got 6 of them ready to build. Actually,
have you? Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, so they can have lances, like combat. They can be close combat built. So the lances are ranged and combat rather, and they can also have like guns, pistols,
a buckler and a
buckler. Yeah.
They do look epic, modelled with the gun and the shield. So I might just build mine with the gun and the shield, and then
it's kind of like a really as you say, it's a buckler, so it's a little baby shield on their arm. Oh, it's cool, and those guns are pretty cool. So the kinetic destroyer, the pistol sustained hit 1, 12-inch range, 2 attacks, 2 to hit, 6 AP1, strength 6 AP1, damage 2. I think the lance is just cooler because it looks
for sure,
like Avenging Angels.
It fits, it fits.
But you can once per battle you can target this unit with the rapid ingress stratagem for 0 CP, even if you've already targeted a different unit with that stratagem in this phase. So that's where you basically like deep strike them onto the board, right?
In your opponent's turn,
your opponent's turn.
So you can kind of get a jump on them, which is really good.
So exactly. So you can spend a CP to do rapid ingress with 1 squad, and then you could spend it for free on the second squad as well. And I just like that, like, you're zooming up your Rhinos and suddenly bam, your Custodians like appear from the skies.
I wonder if you could rapid ingress both.
I think so. So once per battle you can target this unit with the rapid ingress stratagem for 0 CP, and can do so even if you have already targeted a different unit with that stratagem in this phase.
So you can just do it. Amazing,
for sure. I like that. And they've got the Lancers. They look cool. And the Lancers are obviously, they have Lance rule, and they are 5 attacks. So unit 3 is getting 15 attacks, 2s to hit, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. So they're not like amazing, but they are.
Yeah,
They are cool.
That's the kind of Guardian Spear
Yeah.
profile. It does a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. Like it's a solid profile.
And what does the Lance rule again do?
+1 to wound on the turn that you've charged.
Okay, cool.
Which is very good.
And then so I took 2 units of those. I also took a unit of Sagittarium Custodians, which are effectively like the bolt gun looking ones. They've kind of got like heavy bolt gun looking
They have heavy bolters essentially. It's really good.
But they're heavy bolters that are like also laser guns.
Yeah.
So let me just find the rules for those. So the Adeptus Bolt Caliber, sustained hits 1, 36-inch range, 3 attacks, 2s, strength 5, AP 1, damage 2, fine. But saturation volley in your shooting phase after this unit has shot, select one enemy unit except monsters and vehicles hit by one or more of these attacks. So just needs to hit, doesn't need to do any damage until the start of your next turn. Whilst this unit is on the battlefield, that enemy unit is suppressed. Whilst it's suppressed, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll.
I really like that rule.
I think that's really cool.
There's a few different units in the game that can offer that, and I think it's always really powerful. They can give themselves devastating wounds as well, can't they? Once per battle,
disintegration beams once per battle at the start of your shooting phase until the end of the phase. Range weapons equipped by models in this unit have devastating wounds. So that's cool. And then I took like the centerpiece, which is an Ares gunship.
Oh, yes.
A, it's a phenomenal model, and also B, there's a little lore kind of 2 or 3 pager, and it's a Sons of I can't remember, but like one of the Ultramarine successor chapters are like, scrapping, and then like a chaos sorcerer arrives, and it's it's all going badly, and then like this gunship swoops in, and obviously just about to like kill everyone, and this Terminator captain's like he's getting ripped apart and is on his knees, and this gunship swoops in, and then suddenly like the pressure in his mind cuts off, the ramp drops, and like out come these sisters, and they're just like, get wrecked, bam,
not today,
and, like, not today, flamers, bolt guns, and swords, and they like
amazing.
chop his head off. It's so cool. This gunship doesn't have transport capacity, but it's kind of whatever. It was just there in the mind. So it's got its toughness 12, it's 22 wounds with a 2 up save and a 5 up invuln. It's got a 2 Arachnus heavy blaze cannons and an Arachnus magna blaze cannon. So heavy blaze cannon is 36-inch range, 4 attacks, 2s, strength 12, AP 3, damage D6 +1. And then the magna blaze cannon is 48-inch range, 3 attacks, 2s, strength 18, now AP 4, damage D6 +6.
It's me. I mean, Custodes don't have a lot of dedicated anti-tank, so that's certainly ticking that box.
Oh, and it can also do like a fire. So each time this model ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit it moved over. Till the end of the turn, models in that unit cannot have the benefit of cover. In addition, roll 1d6 for each one of the unit for each 6 you suffer from mortal wounds. So imagine flying over like a horde of orcs or something like that.
Very good.
That's cool. Not only have they got like a rubber save, which they're benefiting of cover from, so they're not anymore, but also there's a lot of them, so you're going to hopefully roll some 6s.
Get those 6s in.
If you're looking for anti-tank, go to the Forge World Imperial Armor.
Basically.
Because you've got like dreadnoughts, so you can equip the dreadnoughts with various different cool weapons, including like the Iliastus Accelerated Culverin, so 4 attacks, 2s, strength 9, AP 1, damage 3, so kind of like light vehicles.
Yeah.
The Palace Grav Attack is like the little kind of mini one, and that's got Arachnus Blaze Cannons, which is Dev Wounds, Twin Linked, 8 attacks, 2s, strength 5, so not super strong, but AP 1, damage 1. Maybe that's
more of a horde clearer.
Yeah, my bad. Arachnus Blaze Cannon. What was the one I had then?
Is it the Iliastus Accelerator Culverin?
Arachnus Heavy. I had the Heavy Blaze Cannon. Yeah. Sorry, I got excited. But yeah, the other one is the other tank, which is called the Caladius Grav Tank, and that has the twin Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannon. So strength 12.
Yeah, that's a good anti-tank gun. You ran one of those in a tournament once, didn't you?
I did, yeah. That's right.
I remember that.
And you can also swap it to an Iliastus Accelerator Cannon, which is rapid fire 4, twin linked. So does that mean it's 48-inch range? Does that mean at 24-inch range you're getting 8 attacks?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
8 attacks at 2 up, strength 10, AP 1, damage 3.
That's really good. That's really good. And I mean, you could just give your Telemon 2 fists as well, and then he's a bit of an anti-tank beast as well. But
each time a model makes an attack with its twin Iliastus accelerator cannon that targets an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, the attack has lethal hits.
So lots of Forge Roll goodness in yours.
It's Arachnus Heavy Blades Cannon, which is the more anti-tank one. When it targets monsters or vehicles, it gets lethal hits. So yeah, I think if you're looking for anti-tank, go to Forge World. If you're looking for anti-horde, you could also go to Forge World. They are very heavy in points.
They are.
But like I thought it was cool. It's a cool little list.
I think
it's not it's not going to win any tournaments. It's going to be a good laugh to play.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd love to get my hands on one of those Forge World flyers one day, but
oh, they're spenny. That's the problem.
Yeah. Oh, aren't they just? Yeah.
Which one? What if you could pick one Forge World unit, Max? What would it be to have in your Custodes army?
For the Custodes, well, I've already got 4 of the Dreadnoughts. I've already got 4 of the Dreadnoughts. I've already got 15 Sagittarium, and like I've just said, 6 of the jetpack guys. So, I mean, I think I'd have to go for the Ares gunship, to be honest.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I think
not one of the little tanks, then.
No, probably not. I think the gunship's the one.
The gunships are pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, like, what do you think? So you said you didn't like the jet bikes in the rules.
The Virtus Praetors.
The Virtus Praetors. What do you think to? I want to say the Agamatus Custodians who are on bikes. I
think they have similar rules. I'd have to let me look. Let's answer this question properly.
So they're 240 points.
Okay, which at the moment puts them slightly more expensive than Virtus Praetors cost at the moment.
Does it? No, because that's 240 points for 3.
Right, so bikes at the moment are 75 points. At
the moment. My bad. Yeah, I'm thinking that the 300 points for 3 in the new book.
Okay, so they've got okay options for guns, haven't they?
Again, twin las pulsar, twin linked.
Yeah.
Strength 9.
Yeah, they've got same profile for the Interceptor Lance and turbo boost, so auto 6-inch advance is pretty decent, and you can shoot and scoot as well, so you can move 6 inches after you've shot in the shooting phase. The problem I've got with them is the 4 wounds, toughness 6. So they're the same toughness as a normal custodian. I reckon they should be toughness 7. And 4 wounds. Like if I was trying to like get the most out of my points, I'd probably just take more infantry, to be quite honest. But I'd put them on a similar level to the Virtus Praetors at the moment. I think they've got some of the same drawbacks.
Yeah, and it's nice to have a slightly different weapon option, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. They look pretty cool.
They do. It would be cool to do not full, but like a jet bike army. 3 units of Virtus Praetors and 3 units of Agamatus Custodians with a couple of shield captains on bikes.
I've got 15 bikes sat on my shelf at the moment. That's
You could do it. Max. You just need some Agamatus.
I do.
That would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Please do that. It'd be hilarious. Cool. Okay, so Max, we've talked about Custodes for a little bit now. Right at the beginning, you were a bit down on the book. How are you feeling now? How are you feeling now that we've kind of like dissected it together? Do you think all your comments were like completely valid and you still believe it, or are you kind of thinking, do you know what, actually, maybe this book could be good fun?
You've cheered me up a bit.
Good.
I'm gonna jump into some more of the fluff because I obviously missed bits.
And by missed bits, you meant you didn't read it.
Yeah, I was too concerned with the rules. So I'm gonna get psyched, get hyped up on the fluff a bit more. For me, a lot is gonna depend on the points. If the points are reasonable and are close enough to what they currently stand at, I think a lot of those negatives that I ran through, I can kind of get over. It would just be like a bit of an adjustment, and okay, I'm just gonna have to play this slightly differently. Whatever, I can do that. That's fine, because I am excited to run this list that I've written. So yeah, it's all kind of hinging on the points for me. There's only realistically going to be 2 detachments that I play regularly, but I'll give the character one a go at some point. But that's nothing to complain about because I've only been playing with 1 for the last year. So I've got triple the amount now. So yeah, I think I'm feeling better, Dan. But it will depend on what happens to the points for me, I think.
Yeah, that'll be really interesting to see for sure. Right, so there we go. Those are our thoughts on Custodes, and yeah, obviously we've had some. Max has shared his quite strong opinions. Do you think he's right? What do you think of the Custodes book? Are you frustrated? What do you think of the points? What do you think of the book overall? We'd love to hear from you. Stick it down in the comments or fire us a message. We're at AOTI40k on Instagram, Facebook, and all that jazz. And until next time, keep calm and crusade on.